Welcome to the First Unitarian Church, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness, no matter who you have been, who you are becoming, or who you already are. We greet you today with love.
Thank you. And Abraham Figueroa is our chalice lighter today. Abraham is a member of our accessibility and inclusion ministry team, and I also understand that it was his birthday this last week. Thank you. We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope. Thank you. Well, we begin our service today with these words from Reverend Teresa Soto from their book, Spilling the Light. I need you to know that there is nothing wrong with you. If you find the world congealed and unwieldy, you were never meant to spend your joy frantically soothing yourself in order to tend wounds of being constantly dehumanized. I need you to know that your sense of injury and anger is not overdeveloped. You are meant for love and beauty. You belong where you are known and where your future is not just a resource, but a promise, which you begin to fulfill by being unmistakably, irrevocably yourself. You are not wrong. All of us are meant for love and beauty. All of us belong where we are known and where our future is a promise. All of us belong in a place where we can be unmistakably, irrevocably ourselves. As a congregation and as a community of faith, this is our goal, to be such a place of belonging, where all are known as themselves, where all are truly welcome. With our service today, we are formally launching a new initiative, our Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry Project, which is a certification program sponsored by the Unitarian Universalist Association. The goal of this program is to identify and overcome barriers to the full inclusion of people with all forms of disability, ranging from visible forms, people who use a wheelchair or a scooter, people who are visually or hearing impaired, to invisible disabilities such as chronic illness or chronic pain, to cognitive and mental health disabilities. This work is critical to our mission in so many ways, not only because it represents the embodiment of our first principle, affirming the inherent worth and dignity of every person, but because when the diversity of individual perspectives and life experiences can be fully embraced and celebrated, it enriches us all. If we want to transform the world, it will take all of us. We can't afford to leave anyone outside, unable to get in, unable to participate in the fullness of their being. Can we imagine a church in which all are included, regardless of race, age, sexuality, gender, or class, where no physical barriers stand in the way of accessibility, where those who are visually or hearing impaired can fully participate in all aspects of congregational life, where those with cognitive or psychological disabilities are embraced and loved for who they are. This work is hard work, my friends, and it is not for the faint of heart. But a church that isn't striving to draw its circle ever wider is not a church. And so we start and we fail. And we start and we fall and we start again with kindness, with sincerity, with forgiveness, and most of all, with love. We begin. Our opening hymn is number 1007 in the Teal hymnal, Singing the Journey. It is There's a River, words and music by Rose Sanders, arranged by Kevin Smith, and this comes to us courtesy of First Unitarian Church of Baltimore.
There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that somebody, there's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
This year is the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. The ADA was passed in order to give people with disabilities the same civil rights protections as anyone else, including the right to access government services, use public transportation, go to a job, go to school, and even to use a telephone or other technology. There is still a lot of work to do to tear down the barriers that can make life challenging for people with disabilities. But the ADA made a difference. And it took a lot of people working very hard to get the act passed. One of these people was a little girl named Jennifer Keelan Chaffins. When Jennifer was 2 years old, she was diagnosed with a condition called cerebral palsy. People with cerebral palsy can have trouble controlling the movements of their body. And some people with CP have trouble walking, so they use a wheelchair. Jennifer used a wheelchair from the time she was very small, and that shouldn't have been a problem. But because buildings and sidewalks were designed for people who don't use a wheelchair, Jennifer encountered challenges wherever she went. I'm going to share with you a book called All the Way to the Top that was written by Annette Bay Pimental. And it tells about the challenges that Jennifer encountered and about how she worked to tear down those barriers for herself and for others. This was the kind of world that Jennifer experienced when she was a little girl. Every day she would go to school. The school's not far. Jennifer rolls outside, down the sidewalk, down to the corner, but stop. A 4-inch curb is a cliff to someone who uses a wheelchair. Her grandpa eases her wheelchair over the curb. Though the drop jolts Jennifer, she makes it to the building. But stop. The school says Jennifer doesn't belong there because she uses a wheelchair. Instead, Jennifer and her mom find a different school that says she can attend kindergarten, but only for part of the afternoon when lunch is over. As Jennifer rolls in each day, everyone is already busy. She has to figure out what's going on and how to join in. Since most kids have never met someone who uses a wheelchair, her classmates are confused and even a little afraid. "You'll never be one of us," some of them say. Well, Jennifer knows they're wrong. She knows that she's a friend just waiting to happen. But how do you change someone's mind? She's not sure, but she's not about to give up. Jennifer and her family hear about activists who are working to make sure people with disabilities have access to public places, like schools. They want to know more, so they attend a strategy meeting. Jennifer has never seen anything like that. The room is full of grown-ups with all sorts of disabilities. Some use wheelchairs, some use canes. None of them are sitting around waiting for things to change. They're shouting, laughing, and planning a big protest to get wheelchair lifts on buses. They turn to Jennifer. "Do you want to come?" Yes, she wants to go. Downtown, Jennifer rolls to the microphone and she tells her story. She leads marchers through the streets chanting, "The people, united, will never be defeated." It feels good to speak up for what she believes in. She can't wait to do it again. She's raring to go. She protests in Phoenix, rolls through streets in San Francisco, waves signs in Montreal. The demonstrations don't always change people's minds, but Jennifer is used to that. Even when her neighborhood school finally agrees she can attend, she and her classmates with disabilities aren't allowed to eat in the cafeteria with everyone else. That hurts, but she keeps going. Working with other activists revs her up, yet she can't help noticing that she and her sister are usually the only kids out there raising their voices. Still, she can't leave all the protesting to grown-ups. She knows firsthand that children with disabilities get ignored too. So she keeps speaking up. When Jennifer is 8 years old, activists propose a new law called the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. The law insists schools, governments, and businesses make room for all people, including those with disabilities. Jennifer feels like dancing. If it passes, it means sidewalks with curb cuts, buildings with ramps in addition to steps, and elevators with braille panels. It means Jennifer and her classmates with disabilities can finally go to the cafeteria with everyone else for lunch. Jennifer and her family watch the news for updates on the ADA, but reporters never mention it. She switches off the TV in frustration, wishing she could change reporters' minds on what's worth talking about. Instead, the Keelans get their updates about the ADA when activist friends call. It's bad news. Members of Congress say the law will be too complicated and too expensive. They say it's just not worth it. Since the news station is ignoring people with disabilities, Jennifer and her friends are determined to find another way to make Congress hear their voices. It's go time. Her family buys plane tickets to Washington, D.C. And as they march down Pennsylvania Avenue, Jennifer has never shouted louder. What do we want? The ADA. When do we want it? Now! And finally, they reach the US Capitol, but stop. A mountain of steps block Jennifer and other people using wheelchairs from the building where Congress makes laws. Grown-ups slide out of their wheelchairs and they start pulling themselves up the steps. They will make sure members of Congress know they are here. Jennifer's heart races. This is what she has been shouting about. I want to climb the steps, she says, but stop. The grown-ups think she's too young. You can't do it. Jennifer knows this is not just about her. It's about her friends at school who were shut out of the cafeteria at lunch. It's about millions of other kids she's never met who get stopped at every turn. Jennifer wants to speak up for all the kids with disabilities who aren't there. I need to climb the steps. She slides out of her wheelchair, scoots along the sidewalk to the bottom of the stairway, and puts her hands on the first step. She hauls herself up. Tiny bits of dirt and rock dig into her skin. She drags herself up another step. The crowd roars. Reporters surround her with cameras and microphones, recording her gutsy climb. I'll take all night if I have to, she vows. And she keeps heaving, hauling, dragging herself up those steps. She keeps going all the way to the top. Pictures of Jennifer climbing the steps flash around the world. Reporters start talking about the ADA. Members of Congress see the news. They listen to the activists. And finally, they pass the ADA. Laws like the ADA don't change things overnight. Entrances have to be built, sidewalks redesigned, buses re-engineered. And slowest of all, minds have to change. So Jennifer will continue shouting and waving signs, organizing and explaining. She will continue fighting for what she knows is right. Jennifer has places to go, and nothing will stop her now. Well, today, Jennifer is still an activist, still fighting for the rights of people with disabilities. Jennifer's disability was that she needed to use a wheelchair in a society that was designed for people who don't use wheelchairs. Jennifer and the other disability rights activists helped people with all different kinds of disabilities, though, including disabilities that some people call invisible. Maureen Harvey is a member of our Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry team, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what that invisible disabilities means. Maureen?
This is a reading from the UUA Disability and Accessibility site. Invisible disabilities. But you don't look disabled. How typical of human nature that we seem to think that people with visible disabilities have greater limitations than they really have, while at the same time, we think that people with invisible disabilities have fewer limitations than they really have. Did I get that right? People with visible disabilities have greater limitations than they really have, while at the same time, we think that people with invisible disabilities have fewer limitations than they really have. Here is a partial list of disabilities and chronic conditions that you may see no sign of on the outside. They are inside a person, affecting muscles, bones, cells, nerves, or cognition, allergies, arthritis, asthma, back injury, brain injury, Crohn's disease, chronic fatigue syndrome, diabetes, epilepsy, fibromyalgia, hearing loss, heart disease, irritable bowel syndrome, knee injury, lung disease, lupus, multiple chemical sensitivities, multiple sclerosis. This alphabetical list from A to M is only half an alphabet's worth of invisible disabilities. There are many more. So how do people know? And what do people do? It is natural to assume that because someone appears to be in good health, that he or she can walk just as far, work just as hard, sit just as long as everybody else. Remember, each person is unique, whether they live with a disability or chronic health condition or not. Therefore, it is impossible to make universal statements about what will enable us all in our diversity to be welcomed through accommodation. As with all reciprocal relationships, it is always important and appropriate to ask the people being welcomed what will work for them.
Thank you, Maureen. And one of our worship associates today is Tahira Johnson, member of our congregation and a member of the Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry team. And we weren't able to get Tahira's camera working today, unfortunately, but she's still with us and we are very glad to hear her words today. Tahira?
Yes, thank you for that, Maureen. And yes, apparently I'm also technologically challenged. So that's just one more box I can check off there. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tahira Johnson, and I think my pronouns are she, her, and hers from what I'm hearing. I am a lawyer and disability activist and a former marathon runner. I was injured in 2007 in Chicago in a roller derby game. I broke my neck and suffered a spinal cord injury, resulting in paralysis from the shoulders down. Prior to that, I grew up poor and biracial in inner city Chicago, so fortunately, I already knew life was not supposed to be fair. I have handled quadriplegia about as well as can be expected, I suppose. I was in my late 30s when I was injured, so most of my life experiences are prior to my injury. My parents never worked consistently, but I had the opportunity to work in a summer program at the People's Law Center right up the street from our apartment when I was 15, so that was it. I was introduced to an actual profession, and that's what I wanted to do. I witnessed a lot of injustice growing up, and so I think law was a really fortunate matching for me. I wanted the opportunity to advocate for people. I was already interested in activism, and my injury shifted my focus somewhat with a combination of race, disability, and poverty. Upon reflection, I see a lot more of the disabilities with former clients, specifically addiction and mental health issues, especially in criminal law. And those are bittersweet memories for me, considering the drug and mental health issues in my own family and early experiences. As far as my experience as a disabled member of this church, I would say that I'm less likely to be ignored here than in society in general. So there's that. I'm happy to now be a member of the accessibility and inclusion ministry team here at the church for what is freedom, but the opportunity to live in a space that gives us the best chance to contribute and participate despite the impairments or differences any of us may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tahira. Leslie, would you do our call to offering?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Leslie McCullough, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, the Financial Working Group, and will be also serving on the Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry team. Every Sunday, we take an offering. All the cash and designated checks from that offering go directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work in our community, our Change for Change partners. This month, our Change for Change partner is Free to Live Animal Sanctuary. Free to Live is a nonprofit sanctuary for stray, abandoned, and mistreated dogs and cats. It is the largest no-kill sanctuary in Oklahoma. While we listen to the offertory, you may wish to make a donation to our Change for Change partner using a credit card through our website. Or this could be a good time to find your checkbook, write out a check, and put it aside to mail to First Unitarian tomorrow morning. Let today's offering reflect our highest aspirations for the work of this church in the world.
Something I'm learning day after day, something that steadies my feet on the way, is the truth that my life brought me right to the place I am now. Though I don't know how, there is not a doubt. Nothing is wasted, nothing is lost. All that I went through, whatever the cost, I can use on the road to the person I'm trying to be. None of it came free, but all of it is me. All of who I am is beautiful and strong, as I come to know that all of me belongs, my best and my worst, the ways that I've grown, the struggles I've faced, the joy that I've known. There is a blessing I'm trying to understand. It's been there since my life began. I will find it in all of who I am. Some of my kindness comes from my pain. Sorrow and tenderness join once again in a spirit of gentle compassion that helps me accept every last regret and lets me move ahead. Days on the journey, years on the path, wisdom abounding whenever I ask. And I've come to believe that whatever I need, I will find. Every single time, love will be my guide. All of who I am is beautiful and strong, as I come to know that all of me belongs, my best and my worst, the ways that I've grown, the struggles I've faced, the joy that I've known. There is a blessing I'm trying to understand. It's been there since my life began. I will find it in all of who I am. All of who I am is beautiful and strong, as I come to know that all of me belongs, my best and my worst, the ways that I've grown, the struggles I've faced, the joy that I've known. There is a blessing I'm trying to understand. It's been there since my life began. I will find it in all of who I am. I will find it in all of who I am.
We have a reading from Susan Bishop, who is also a member of our Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry team.
This reading is on the UU Principles and Disability by Michael Deichlein. It was written November of 1997. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Worth takes endless forms. As we find more expressions of our worth, we grow richer as a church community. We believe in justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. If we let rationalizations replace justice, resignation replace equity, or pity replace compassion, our human relations are diminished. We believe in acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregation. How do I withhold acceptance? Do my fears stunt our congregation's growth? When next I hesitate, can I extend my hand instead? We believe in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. How much more will we learn if we share our search with travelers who set a different pace, see from a different perspective, or understand with a different wisdom? We believe in the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within the congregation and society at large. For all to have a voice, we need many ways of expression, and we need many ways to listen. We believe in the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Just as peace means no violence and liberty means no oppression, and justice means no prejudice, all means no exceptions. And we believe in respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. We gain strength from the support of others. Together, we grow stronger as we support others. And together we can weave our values into an ever stronger web of existence.
Thank you, Susan. And Wendy Pitt, who is also a member of the Accessibility Inclusion Ministry team, has a reflection for us.
Okay, so to start, I'm going to read/sing a little piece of music from the musical Chicago. It's composed by John Riley, and you do realize that I'm a flute player, not a singer, so you have to forgive me. And it goes like this. And even without clucking like a hen, everyone gets noticed now and then. Unless, of course, that person, it should be invisible, inconsequential me. Cellophane, Mr. Cellophane should have been my name, Mr. Cellophane, 'cause you can look right through me, walk right by me, and never know I'm there. So living with a visual impairment, sometimes I feel like Mr. Cellophane. I feel like I'm invisible to the rest of the world. The world doesn't know my needs. To make a long story short, I was born with congenital cataracts, that little hazy, cloudy thing in your lens. I have nystagmus, which is an eye movement disorder. I had crooked or crossed eyes. When I was a teenager, I developed glaucoma or elevated eye pressure. Despite 16 eye surgeries, my best corrected vision with the glasses on is 20/40 and 21/50 in this eye. I don't have depth perception or 3D vision, and I have limited peripheral vision. It's kind of like the tunnel vision. The world was made for people with typical vision or an acuity of 20/20. Signs on the end of aisles at Walmart and Target, they're at a certain height and a certain type font. Labels on packages and receipt. Even at the doctor's office, it's expected that an average-sighted person is filling out a form where you've got a review of systems that has 50 items in teeny tiny print squeezed onto one page. Earlier this year, as of course the COVID precautions started, we started wearing masks, which even with a mask on, there's this little nose bridge and that reduces my peripheral vision. And check out lines in stores and check in offices at desks, put up various types of plastic, these plastic barriers, and an attempt to reduce the spread of aerosolized vital droplets, despite people wearing masks on both sides of the fence. Plastic is kind of like cellophane. It's clear. When you hold it at an angle, it's shiny, and when you look straight through it, it can be nearly imperceptible. At one unnamed craft store, they initially had this hanging piece of plastic that you had to reach underneath to use the credit card machine. It was kind of waving in the wind, which added glare. It made it really hard for me to use the machine. Another incident was extremely embarrassing for me. I had to have some routine blood work, and I knew they needed ahead of time my driver's license and insurance card, so I started to get them out of my purse while another woman was being helped. The receptionist called me forward and asked for my cards. I moved them straight towards her and hit this hard barrier. My brain didn't comprehend what was happening, so I hit it right again. I did not see the small little bank teller opening at the bottom of this invisible barrier. As this barrier was not fastened very well, I knocked it completely over with such force that it knocked over the receptionist's computer monitor. And unfortunately, this lady must have been having a stressful day because she made an exasperated sound, and she walked away. I started crying immediately and apologized. I'm so sorry, as another woman came up to help me. I felt so humiliated. It could have happened to anyone, but it felt so much more painful to me because of my vision impairment. Finally, as many of you know, I'm a pediatrician. I work with kids, but during medical school training, we rotate through all the specialties because they want to give us a chance to do something else, or to try to sway us to do something else. And during my third year, geriatrics, which is internal medicine and specifically training for older folks, we had to do this exercise to, quote, experience what elderly people go through as they age. We had to put on extremely dark goggles, darker than my sunglasses. They had us put on noise canceling headphones. We were put in adult diapers under our clothing Our ankles were shackled. And for over 2 hours, we had to kind of shuffle up and down a hallway with a cane. We had to try to thread a needle and do other such menial tasks. And although I did pretty good at some of these tasks, already having a visual impairment and learning through the years how to do them, I hated this training. It felt very demeaning. And as the past couple of decades have gone on, I've been more and more disgusted that they tried to make us do this. Yes, as people age, they lose vision, hearing, mobility, and other functions. That's just a fact of life. However, you cannot teach empathy. It is something that only comes through experience, and it's from the heart. You know, I briefly thought about, well, maybe I could have people in the church, go ahead, cover your best eye, squint through your worst eye, try to see across the room, or imagine what it's like in Wendy's world. If you have crappy vision and, sorry, I said crappy at church, sorry. And if you don't have depth perception, try to pretend to do that. And then I thought of that horrible experience in medical school. It's not worth it. I don't want you to pretend to understand. Instead, think about just how you navigate the world day to day, task to task. Then think of somebody that you already know who has a disability, a coworker, a friend, a family member, and ask them, what is it like to live in your world day to day? How would you like to be treated? As somebody with a difference that is important to who you are, or as somebody without a disability? Because sometimes that's important too. I want to just be treated like a normal human being. And then ask them, how can we best welcome and honor you? What changes in our hearts and in our words, not just the building, even though a smooth parking lot and accessible classrooms and a chancel are some of Wendy's goals for our team, would make you feel more comfortable in our family? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I have a brief reading again from Reverend Teresa Soto. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath, the foundation of our values and ethics. We are the people who return to love like a north star and to the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistinct future. Rather, we know the way to the world of which we dream, and by covenant and the movement forward of one right action and the next, we know that one day we will arrive at home. Please join me in a moment of meditation. I'm going to ask that you take a comfortable seat, take a few deep breaths, and this may be uncomfortable, but I ask you to remember a time when you were left out, when you were not included. Maybe it was because some barrier stood in your way. Maybe because things were said that made you feel you were not welcome. Just think for a moment about how that felt. How it felt in your body to be the one left outside. And now I ask you to remember another time, a time when you were welcomed in, a time when you felt that nothing stood in your way to where you wanted to go or who you wanted to be with, where people said and did things that let you know that you were welcome for who you were. Let's take just a moment and remember how that felt in your body, to know you were welcome, you were included. Just take a deep breath with me and just hold that for just a moment, that feeling. Spirit of life, may we always remember in our bodies what it is to be left out and how it feels to be welcomed in. May we be the people who welcome. May we find the strength to be vulnerable and the wisdom to appear foolish in order to learn, in order to better understand. And when we make mistakes, and as human beings, we will, if we accidentally offend through the use of a wrong word or through an awkward action, may our pride not get in the way of moving forward. May we own our mistakes, apologize for them, resolve to do better. May we always return to the foundation of our values and our ethics. May we truly be the people who return to love like a North Star and to the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing hymn is number 1053, How Could Anyone, by Libby Roderick, and it is performed today by Kate Rattler. Thank you very much, Kate, for doing this.
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle, how deeply you're connected to my soul.
And Abraham, would you extinguish our chalice for us? We extinguish the flame, but not the light of love and community, which burn in our hearts. May you be safe. May you be well. Remember that you are meant for love and beauty. In all your brokenness and in the wholeness of who you are, just as you are, and as you are becoming. And may you know that you are held in a cloud of love. Love, love. Please come back after the service has ended and after you've taken a little break, get your cup of coffee and join us for our virtual coffee hour. We'll be starting a few minutes after we close up here. Our postlude today is number 95, if you'd like to sing along at home. There is more love somewhere. This was produced by Reverend Christopher Watkins Lamb, and it comes to us courtesy of Foothills Unitarian Church.
There is more love somewhere. I can feel it. There is more love somewhere. Hear it. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. Till I find it. There is more love somewhere. Help me hear it. There is more somewhere. Help me hear it. There is more somewhere. Hear it. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. Till I find